thought, surely my mother is going to come and rescue me. And I went to a friend's house, and I waited. And I waited a day, and then it was a second day, and a third day, and no one was coming for me. And so I thought, after about a week, okay, maybe I need to say I'm sorry. Maybe I need to call and apologize, because maybe I was just being a really awful teenager. And so I tried to call, and on the other end of the line, as they would pick up, they would hang up the phone. And that continued for over a year. And I was disowned by my family for speaking out against the abuse that was happening in our home. And so a year later, as I found myself without a home, no place to live, and I was roaming from family to family, friend to friend, trying to work on my high school education, hopeless after a year of that rejection from my family, walking past your brother in your high school that wouldn't even speak to you, and trying to deal with those emotions as a young child, I decided that this life wasn't worth living, and so I decided to take my own life. And I tried to commit suicide. And I woke up in the hospital, looking around, I'm laying in a hospital bed, and I thought to myself, who is this person? This isn't me. I wasn't created for this. This isn't what my life is supposed to be. And if I remain broken my entire life, then the only person that loses is me. I'm the only one that loses. No one else loses. So, as I was laying there, I thought, what am I going to do? 16, trying to solve the world's problems. And I thought, people that get an education, they seem to be able to make money. I have to make money. I have to live. I have to find a place to live. I have to put food on the table. I have to get through school. So I made a promise to myself that day that I was going to get an education. And I thought, okay, I have to get an undergraduate degree. And maybe if I can get a master's degree, then maybe everything will work out. And so when I was 16, I made that promise to myself, that I would get an undergraduate degree and I would get a master's degree. And that I would focus on that, so that every time I hit a roadblock, every time I was failing, every time I hit a wrong decision or I was broken again, that I could keep focused on that one goal and do that one thing for me. And that's what kept me straight. That's what kept me solid and not veering to the left or veering to the right and making some really horrible decisions that we know a lot of people in that situation make, and they make choices that really just have a lifelong impact on their life. And so for me, education was the answer. And the way that I didn't know about government resources, I didn't know about those tools, I didn't even know to ask the question. I just thought I had to do it on my own. I didn't even have a mentor to go and talk to say, how do I do this? I just thought, I have to figure this out. I don't have anyone to talk to, so I'm going to just figure it out. So I went and applied for a job. I went to high school. I went ahead and I started trying to fill out my own college applications and trying to just figure out all of those things on my own. And what I found was, I thought, how am I going to pay for school? And what I thought was, maybe there's a company that will actually pay for someone to go to school. And so as I applied for just these minimum wage jobs, I would see these little things. We offer education assistance. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try to work there. And so I would work for these companies that offered just a little bit of education assistance, and I would take whatever that they would provide, and I would apply that towards my education. And so as I was working full-time, I would always make sure I always used that money that the schools would provide, or not the schools that would provide, but the companies would provide, as I was just earning this minimum wage. And I was blessed to be in the U.S. where they had some of those types of programs. But it took me 11 years, and I was able to obtain a finance degree, undergraduate degree, a business degree, undergraduate degree, and a master's degree in business administration. And I can now say, that there is no shame. I have 6 beautiful children. I have an amazing husband, and that was through the grace of God that I have an amazing husband who was the one person that said, you can. And so my quest to you would be that one person for somebody that says you can. They just need someone to tell them that they can do it, and that when they fall down, that they can get back up. And you have to set a goal for yourself. I set 2 goals for myself when I was in school. And they were very simple goals because, again, I was very young and simple-minded. But my goal was, if I show up and I attend every class and I turn every paper in, they can't fail me. There's no way a teacher can fail me if I try. And so I set something very simple, but those were the things that I focused on. So look for that one person, that one thing that you can do to make a difference, to lift another human being, to lift another person. And as we give them the individual confidence that they can have within, then they're going to be able to pass that down to their children and to their children. And it's through the mothers. It's through the mothers and through the families. We have the ability to influence our sons. We have the ability to influence our daughters. And we will be the change for good. And we got to instill that confidence that they can. Just be the person to tell them they can.
Thanks very much, Michelle, for sharing your personal story. I think it's people like you that can kind of break the cycle by sharing your story. I'm also going to share a personal story as well to kind of talk about some of the factors that I think is really important to break the cycle of poverty. So I grew up in poverty myself also. My mother was a single mother, alcoholic. We were homeless most of our childhood. We lived in homes every few months. And really basic stuff. We didn't have like electricity, the electricity was never comes from never had money to pay for it. Like food, we had to scavenge for food all the time. And growing up in that kind of that kind of a background, you can easily fall through the net and kind of repeat the cycle, the intergenerational cycle that I come from. I was really lucky through education to be able to break that cycle. I studied hard, I got the highest marks in the country, attended one of the best universities in the world and became a lawyer. But it's really, really difficult to say that education alone breaks the cycle, and that's actually not the answer. And that's what I learned the hard way. It's not education that breaks the cycle, it's only one of the factors. You can't break the cycle of poverty only through education. 5 years ago, my brother committed suicide, and in the aftermath, I had a lot of time to think. He committed suicide through drowning. So he entered the river in the hometown where I'm from, and it took us about 5 months to find his body because he could go into a really deep river. So for 5 months, I came home from a really high-powered job working as a lawyer in the European Union. I came home to Ireland and I was searching for his body all day, every day for 5 months, walking along the river, searching for his body. And during this time, I had a lot of time to think, and I thought we had grown up in exactly the same family, but we'd gone completely different paths in life. And I thought, how did that happen? And one of the things that I realised was education is important, but it's not actually going to change the cycle of poverty on its own. And what actually happened to me was actually a complete fluke. It was an anomaly. It happened by chance. It happened by luck. It isn't just education alone that breaks the cycle of poverty. What could have actually changed my brother's life? We grew up. Our mum died when we were really young. She was an alcoholic. She died really young. There was no adult ever around to encourage, to mentor, to support. There was no one around that could actually help me break that cycle. There was no coaching. There was no positive self-esteem. There was no, everyone who comes from this kind of a background, you're always going to have mental health issues. There was no one to try and kind of break that. So I decided to set up an organisation. So I left my legal career and I entered the really unknown world of youth work. So I entered that world and I set up an organisation called Future Voices in Ireland. And we work with young people from particularly dysfunctional backgrounds. They're a lot of the time they're from gang backgrounds. They're from backgrounds where the parents have died of addiction. They're from really tough backgrounds. And we've been working with them. It's a 3-year program. That's one of the things that I've realised to break the cycle of poverty. It needs to be a long-term intervention. You're not going to change someone's life in a few weeks or a few days or a total program where you only go away for a week. You have to do the long-term. You have to be there in the long haul. So the way that we actually try and help them break that cycle of poverty, it's a really kind of holistic a multifunctional approach. You're not going to be able to break it through one thing alone. We get them in the education, but that's not going to break it on its own. We have counselors, we have therapists, we do a lot of coaching. A lot of the things that I found with young people coming from from poverty is they want to change their lives, but they actually don't know how to go about it. And I think that's the thing. They don't have the vision to know how to actually get there, how to get to the steps in the line. So that's one of the things that we actually do. We do a lot of coaching, a lot of visioning, because if you're coming from a background, like most of the young people I work with, they've never ever seen anyone work. They've never ever seen anyone go to education. They've never seen any of these things. To be able to even think about going to college, it's just so far out there, like they can't even imagine it. So that's one of the things that we really have to work hard on, to be able to kind of shift that focus and aspiration so that they can actually believe that they can do it. One of the other things that we also do that's really important is the idea of participation. It's about their voices being heard. In my previous career, I used to represent travellers and gypsies, nomadic people. And one of the things I found really, really difficult in the NGO and the charity sector is I would be going along and I'd be making representations to the ministers. But I'm not a traveller, I'm not a gypsy myself, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. I'd be going off to the UN and I'd be representing them, but I'm not a traveller. And that's one of the things that I really incorporated in the programme with Future Voices. It's always the young people's voices that need to be heard, because they know best what is achieved for them. And it's really, really simple stuff. A lot of the time, like a lot of the young people I work with, their parents are drug addicts. And they want to break the cycle and they want to go on to college. But if they're at home after school, they can't actually study because their parents are high as kites and they actually can't study for their exams. So one of the things that we do is create a quiet space, and it's so small. But in the schools in Ireland, we have to pay something like €500 a year to be able to stay in an after school club where you can study after school in school premises. And that's such a simple, basic thing, but it's a right that they don't have that right to be able to study for their education and to get their exams. So a lot of it's about them being able to stand up for the inequalities that they're facing every single day of their lives. One of the other things, a lot of them are coming from backgrounds where the areas are highly kind of gang, there's a lot of gang concentrations in the areas where they're from. And they're literally walking outside their front door and there's syringes on the ground, there's syringes in the park. They're having to be tested for HIV because they're accidentally standing on syringes. And I think for them to be able to go to a government minister, and we're always kind of encouraging that they can kind of make changes happen through access to the highest level influencers. By them being able to go and say to the minister, I need this area cleaned up because it's not safe for me and my little brothers and sisters, that's really powerful. And that's actually what helps break the poverty cycle as well. By giving them a voice, they feel ownership, and then by them going on and succeeding, it encourages the people to go behind them. And in terms of the programme that we've had incredible successes. In the past number of years, every single person who's been through the programme has gone on to further higher education, which is incredible. And one of the this sounds really funny, but I'm not a crier at all, but one of the things that had me in floods of tears was last year I went with one of the young people and we had to open a bank account for her student college account, and she was the first person in her whole family to have a bank account, and that's in a developed country. So I think there's a lot of the time there's a tendency to kind of assume that poverty doesn't affect the Western world, that it only affects developed